Today, we're diving into a multi-billion-dollar mystery. It's inspired by a fantastic book called The Missing Billionaires, and it's all about a really fascinating question. Why do the world's greatest fortunes just disappear? And more importantly, what can that teach all of us about how we manage our own money? You know, this quote from Cornelius Vanderbilt really sets the stage perfectly. Back in the 19th century, this guy was the wealthiest man on the planet. He definitely knew how to make a fortune. But as we're about to see with his own family, these words were a serious warning. Making wealth and actually keeping it, they're two completely different ballgames. And the Vanderbilt inheritance is the perfect, almost unbelievable case study for this very problem. It just goes to show you how quickly a family's financial empire can completely, well, evaporate. Okay, so let's just try to wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this wealth. When Commodore Vanderbilt died way back in 1877, he left his son an inheritance of $100 million. In today's money, we're talking billions. It was literally the largest fortune in the world at the time. So what's left of that original fortune for his descendants today? Get this, zero. Not a single Vanderbilt heir is even a millionaire because of that inheritance. The entire massive fortune is just gone. So how on earth does that happen? I mean, it's staggering. It wasn't just that the family got bigger over time. The wealth itself was just completely mismanaged. The book points out something incredible. If the family had just done the most basic, boring thing, put the money in a mix of U.S. stocks and only spent a little bit each year, each living descendant today could be worth over $5 billion. Think about that. And as shocking as the Vanderbilt story is, it's not some weird, isolated incident. It's actually a perfect example of a pattern that's so common it has its own saying in cultures all over the world. Yeah, it's the classic shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations idea. You know the one. The first generation works their fingers to the bone to make the money. The second generation gets to enjoy it, and by the third generation, well, the fortune's gone, and they're right back where their grandparents started. It's this quiet journey from incredible prosperity right back to square one. And you can see the proof of this on a huge scale. Just think about the billionaires on the lists today. Most of them are self-made, right? If the great fortunes of the past were managed well, our billionaire lists would be packed with old money families. The fact that they aren't, well, that tells you something is systemically broken in how we think about preserving wealth. Which, of course, leads us to the central question. If keeping money is so important, and so many people have failed at it so spectacularly, why do we keep making the same mistakes? What is everyone getting wrong? Well, a huge part of the problem is that when we look for answers, we're just hit with this wall of noise. The world of financial advice is this loud, confusing mess of conflicting recommendations. I mean, the advice is completely all over the place, isn't it? One expert tells you, play it safe, buy low-cost index funds. The next one says, no, you got to pick individual stocks and use leverage to really juice your returns. We're told to buy and hold for the long run, but in the next breath, we're told to be terrified of market bubbles. It's no wonder people feel totally lost. This isn't a roadmap, it's just a bunch of noise. The authors of The Missing Billionaires argue that all this confusion exists because pretty much the entire personal finance industry is obsessed with answering one very specific question. And this, right here, is the absolute heart of the book's argument. It suggests we need a radical shift in our focus. We need to start asking a completely different question to cut through all that noise. See, the entire financial world, from TV shows to magazines, trains us to ask this one thing. What should I invest in? Should it be stocks, bonds, real estate, maybe crypto? We spend all our energy trying to pick the winning thing. But here it is. Here's the shift. The authors argue the most important question isn't what to invest in, but how much. It's not about which stock to pick, it's about position sizing. How much of your money should you put at risk versus how much should you keep safe? Getting this question right is the real key to not ending up like the Vanderbilts. And hey, this isn't some fringe idea. Here's a quote from Michael Mauboussin at Morgan Stanley. He's a very, very respected thinker in the world of finance. He straight up confirms that this how much question, the whole issue of sizing your bets, is the big missing piece in most investment advice. So the solution isn't about finding the next hot stock tip. It's about building a durable, long-lasting framework for making financial decisions, one that can survive not just the next few years, but for generations. And this is so critical to get. Making a fortune and keeping a fortune require totally different skills.
Making money often means you have to take these huge, concentrated risks, like a founder pouring their entire life into one single startup. But keeping that money, that requires the exact opposite. It demands a disciplined, long-term framework for managing that risk.
And this framework they describe is a whole system, not just one decision. It all connects. Investment sizing, that how much question, directly affects how much you can spend. How much you can safely spend depends entirely on how much risk you're taking. And your personal feelings about risk shouldn't just be a number. It has to reflect your age, your goals, what your family needs. See, these aren't separate choices. They are all one big interconnected decision that shapes your entire financial life. So we all know making money is hard work. But when you look at the evidence, from the Vanderbilts all the way to today, it forces you to ask a tough question. Is keeping it even harder? And maybe more importantly, is your own financial plan built to answer that challenge?